Morning, Riverbend. My name is Dave. Perhaps you don't remember me. And some of you may be disappointed to see me back here. I am so proud of being a part of a teaching team with gifted people like Stephanie Rollins and Travis Taylor. Can you affirm? I hope you understand how blessed we are as a community to have younger teaching voices who can develop, and we can encourage them even as they encourage us. But today, I'm back, and we want to start a study that will take a number of weeks, and it's built on a proposition that I want to share with you this morning. And the proposition is this: fame, popularity, notoriety, celebrity, influence, recognition, fame is a dangerous thing. Now, fame is not necessarily a bad thing, but because fame can be useful. Our fame and our influence, our notoriety, our recognition, our ability to take charge in a situation can be a blessing. We can bring light and hope and encouragement to people. Fame can be something that is of benefit to many people. It can be a light in a dark world. And fame is a dangerous thing in that it has to be handled carefully, because we know that fame can get out of control. But fame, if it's handled carefully, if it's kind of handled like dynamite or nitroglycerin or weapons grade plutonium or some contagious lethal virus, we know that if it's handled carefully, it can work for the benefit of others. Fame actually has an unintended influence when we see someone who is highly gifted. I don't know if you watch golf. If you've ever watched golf and you play golf, you're reminded that game can't be that hard. I mean, how hard can it be to hit a ball a quarter of a mile and land it within a 6-inch circle? I could do that, right? But because we know that someone can get it right, someone can accomplish this, someone can achieve what we aspire to, it gives us hope. And so fame kind of gives us this idea that maybe it's just possible that someday we might get it right, that someday we might be beautiful too. Someday we might be that smart. Someday we might accomplish something like that. So fame is not intrinsically a bad thing, but fame is a dangerous thing, because fame involves the potential for delusion, for deception. Fame can be a lie. We start to believe the press about ourselves. We start to smell ourselves. It starts to put people in positions that they are not really capable of fulfilling, of expectations. It was in the early 1960s, perhaps some of you remember an artist by the name of Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol made a prediction in the early 1960s, almost 70 years ago. He said, in the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. This was before the internet, this was before Instagram, and this was before TikTok, and this was before Facebook. This was before it was possible literally for anyone to become almost instantly worldwide famous. Before anyone had any likes or views or resends, before any of the internet influence happened, he predicted a day when everyone would be famous for 15 minutes. And I think what we have found is that that's not only true, it's not even close to true. Because not only will everyone be famous for 15 minutes, everyone is famous to someone. Every parent is famous to their children. Every teacher is famous to their students. Every doctor is famous to their patients. Every lawyer is famous to their clients. Every cook is famous to their customers. And each of us has to come to terms with our influence and our responsibility for that influence, because each of us is famous to someone. And that fame is a dangerous thing. I want to spend the next few weeks investigating how do we become good stewards of our own influence? How do we become people who make the most of our responsibility, of our gifts and our talents and our abilities, of our strengths and our accomplishments? How do we make the most of our talents? How are we good stewards of our fame? And I want to suggest over the coming weeks that it is developing one thing. But before we talk about what that one thing is, would you pray with me? Father in heaven, I would ask that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart would be pleasing in your sight, that you would use your words spoken by your servant and anointed by your Spirit to challenge us to be good stewards of our influence, for you have made us as light in the world. May we use that light well. Pray that for myself and for my family and for all of us here. For I ask that in Jesus' name, amen. I want you to imagine for a moment that our life is a beam of light. Like our life is a light that shines in the darkness. And as a beam of light, it has influence. It cuts through and it illuminates and it shines and it goes out into infinity at some distance that we don't know. And the first question we often ask about our life as this beam of light is, what am I supposed to do? What is my purpose? What is the meaning of my life? What is the purpose of my life? And this is a good question to ask. It's good to wrestle with, am I fulfilling my purpose? What is my God-given purpose? What is my purpose to make the world a better place? How do I shine as a light in a dark world? What is my purpose in this world? That's a good question, but it's the wrong question. Because the more important question is not what am I supposed to do, but who am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be? Because if I know who I am fashioned to be, who I am called to be, who I am destined to be, then I will know what I am called to do. Then I will know my purpose. But how do we know who we are called to be? If you remember elementary school light, the study of science and what you learned in elementary school about light is that light is a fundamental building block of the universe that we live in. It's an essential to life on Earth. It's what promotes photosynthesis. It's what promotes plant growth. It creates the atmosphere. Light is an essential part of human existence. It's an essential part of life on this planet. So light is a pretty important thing. And we realize that light is something that travels at a constant speed throughout the universe, 186,000 miles per second, or 671,000 miles an hour, I forget, or 671 miles per second, 186,000 feet per second, no, miles per second, that's what it is. It's fast. But light is a constant. Physics has told us that light is a constant and that light is related to time and space, that we understand the dimensionality of our existence because of the constant of speed of light. That theoretically, if you could travel well past the speed of light to the edge of the universe where the light from the Big Bang has not yet reached, you could theoretically see back in time. So that time and space and relativity are all related to light. But if our life is light, what does that mean? Well, I think what it means is we need to look at our lives through a prism. You know what happens when you shine a light through a prism, right? Like this is a prism right here, and this is a light. And if we shine light through a prism and we get it to focus, should be able to see, possibly we'll be able to see. Dave was a terrible science teacher. What maybe we'll see, I had it earlier, really did, trust me. Like, okay, all right. What you will see is a refraction of the light. The light is refracted, and it is displayed as a rainbow, as the colors ROYGBIV. Roy G. Biv. That's a Budak. That's not a real word. Roy G. Biv is not a real word. It's a Budak, which is a mnemonic device for remembering the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, even though I thought it should be Roy G. Bip. And I got into an argument with my elementary science school teacher because I said, it's not violet, it's purple. But they said, no, it's Roy G. Biv. I said, okay. And so visible light then, when it's looked at through a prism, we understand that visible light is not what it appears on the surface. It's not just white. It's made up of an infinite spectrum of frequencies. The highest frequency that we can see is red. Beyond that is infrared. And the lowest frequency is violet. And the lowest frequency beyond what we can see is ultraviolet. And we know that light is made up of this spectrum of waves. And so if we want to understand who we are, if we want to be light in the world, if we are people who have influence, and people are to bring light into the world, and all of us do, all of us illuminate the world in one way or another, what are we really made of? Who are we really? And it requires us looking through a prism. Now, the typical prism is the prism of psychology or psychotherapy or philosophy or meditation or reflection. And these ideas that who we are and who we are called to be, we can sort through philosophically or perhaps logically or psychologically are good pursuits. But I want to say, if we really want to know why we are and who we are, we look at our lives through the prism of grace. That when we look at our lives through the prism of grace, we see ourselves not just as all bad or all good, but various wavelengths of capacities and liabilities, of strengths and weaknesses, of successes and failures. And all of these things come together through the prism of grace, and they all have value. All of the things we are able to do and all of the things that we can't. Because in the alchemy of life, our abilities fit perfectly with the liabilities of someone else. Our strengths are meant to complement others' weaknesses. We learn from our failures so that we can help others who are going through the same struggle. And in that spectrum of who we are fashioned to be, we go on a journey. And it is a journey to humility. Humility is a subject that we kind of think we understand. We think we know what it means to be truly humble, but we don't. We have sort of mutated views of humility. We have a faux humility that really is just built out of our insecurity. Oh, you like that outfit? Oh, this old thing? Oh, no. And what we're saying is, compliment me again, because I need more. I need more affirmation. Oh, I'm really no good at that. Oh, that was my best effort, but I'm sorry it wasn't the best. It's really, we embrace this sort of faux humility. But the true humility that defines who we are is not a thing, it's a process. It's a journey. It is a lifelong pursuit. It is a search for, a quest for what it means to be truly humble. In the Hebrew Bible, there are a handful of words for humility. But the three most common, the most common words are anach and shefal and kanach. And the first two words, anach and shefal, are words that mean to bend the knee or to bow down. And most of the time that they are used in the Hebrew Bible, it is a reflexive action. You are made to bend the knee or you are made to bow down. It's the idea of to be humbled or to be humiliated. It's a passive idea that humility is something that happens to us. But the word shefal, or the word kana, the third word, which is the most common word in the Hebrew Bible, not only means to bend the knee or to bow down, it also comes from an ancient Akkadian root. In the history of etymology, the history of written language, people who study such things speculate that written language has only existed among human beings for 5,000 or 6,000 years. Now, that may seem like a long time, but given the span of life on Earth, 5,000 or 6,000 years is a reasonably rather recent development. Spoken language is a problem too, but written language was born, and etymologists don't really know how this happened, in two parts of the world right around the same time. In Asia, in China, the pictographic language, what is modern Chinese and Japanese and Asian language, written language, came from forms of stones that were laid out, so that if you wanted to write the word for a house, you would lay the stones out in a way that looked like that. And the word for house looked like that. If you look at Chinese, it's basically a pictographic language. But on the other side of the earth, in Egypt, written language was developed in picture form, so that there was a picture of a man and a picture of a house. And it became too cumbersome to tell a story with pictures, so those pictures eventually evolved into stylized letters that look similar to Chinese in a written form called cuneiform language. And cuneiform language was basically a stylus that was placed in wet clay. And in the wet clay, the formation of the stylus would represent a word for a man or a woman or a house or a bird or a warrior or something like that. And then the words eventually morphed into their pronunciation. And so the languages of Ugaritic and Sumerian and Babylonian, Neo-Babylonian and Akkadian were all basically cuneiform written languages. And in the cuneiform written language of Akkadian, there is a word that is the root word of kana. And it is a word for a resting bird. It is the drawing of it looks like sort of a square, and you can imagine that it looks like a bird. Now, why does a bird, it literally means a bird with folded wings. Why does a bird have folded wings? One is because it's caught and it's in someone's hand and the wings are tucked in. Or why else does a bird have folded wings? Because it's in its nest and it is at rest. And the Canaanite word for kana, which came to mean humility, meant to be content. You see why humility is not a thing that you gain? Humility is a pursuit that leads us to contentment. In fact, in the Greek New Testament, there's only one word that is most often translated humility, and it is the word tepe nos. that right? Show me the slide. Tapenos. All right, we're going to go with tapenos being the right word. Tapenos is the right word. Tapenos, and tapenos is the word that occurs in Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 to 13. Listen to what the Apostle Paul talks about, humility that leads to contentment. He says in verse 11, I have learned to be content whatever my circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content, whether I am in any and every situation, whether I am well-fed or hungry, whether I am in need or whether I'm poor, and whether I am wealthy. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. So that humility really is a process that leads us to contentment. And the process that leads us to contentment is as we further understand the nature of our light, which means we increase in God awareness as we increase in self-awareness. But we increase in God reliance as we decrease in self-reliance. And this pursuit is the pursuit of humility. This is the pursuit of what it means to handle our influence well, to handle our fame with good stewardship, to handle our responsibility to make the lives of the people around us better, is a pursuit of humility that leads to contentment. See, the idea that who we are to be is we are to be people of increasing humility and increasing contentment really does define not just who we are, but what we are called to do. What I want to do over the coming weeks is I want us to take a journey. I want us to suss out, I want us to search out in our lives what it means to be truly humble people, to be truly content, to find out not just what we are to do, but who we are called to be, and to find rest in that. I want us to take that journey together. And I want us to do it by following the life of a man named Saul of Tarsus, who began his life on this side of grace and who wound up writing Philippians chapter 4, who understood that he had learned to be content in any and every circumstance. I want us to learn from Paul. I want us to follow in his footsteps, because it's not a thing, it's a process, it's a journey. And what we will find about this young man next week, named Saul of Tarsus, is that he was dragged kicking and screaming into humility, much like all of us, or at least like me, because I am often dragged kicking and screaming into humility. It is not a willing thing. My knees are made to bend. I am often humbled. I told you the story of the duck boat. Didn't I tell you the duck boat story a number of years ago? There were a number of years ago, for 10 years, Diane and I lived downtown. We loved living downtown. For 4 or 5 years, we had an apartment on Rio Grande and 5th. And we enjoyed living downtown. And then we bought a condo. We bought a condo at the end of Red River, down in the Rainey Street district. You don't get any cooler than that. If you're a longtime Riverbender, you know Hipsterville was Rainey Street. We lived in the Rainey Street district, right in the essence of when Rainey was cool. Now, it was a nightmare getting in and out of there from here, but once you were there, you could walk anywhere, you could go anywhere. And so Diane and I, who have our date nights on Friday, we would go out to dinner, we would go out for drinks and dinner, we'd just walk from our condos. It was perfect. But when our 3 daughters wound up moving all to Austin, they said, we want to meet you on Friday night before your date night and maybe have a drink with you and see you. And you can't say no to your kids when they say, we want to hang out with you. And so we got in the pattern of meeting them on Friday evenings downtown at their favorite bar. Now, when I say it was their favorite bar, this is the sketchiest bar in Austin. It is down on Dirty 6th Street. It is called Casino El Camino. It is at 6th Street and Red River. And this bar, to say that it is a sketchy dive bar is to insult sketchy dive bars. This is, if you go to Casino, and it's famous, it was on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives for having the best hamburgers in Austin. And that may be true. But my daughters became great friends with the general manager and the head bartender. His name is Mark Frappier. Mark Frappier is probably watching even as I'm talking right now. And Mark is a dear family friend. In fact, Mark is such a good family friend, he officiated at my oldest daughter's wedding. He married my oldest daughter and her husband, Jeremy, on the back patio behind Casino El Camino. The pastor of Riverbend Church had his daughter married behind Casino El Camino bar on 36th Street in Austin. This is how good a friend Frapp is of our family. Well, about 10 years ago, we were down with our daughters on pre-date night. Diane and I were there, and we were sitting there, and they were there with probably a dozen of their friends, a bunch of scoundrels who they run around with, and we were there at Casino, and I said to Frapp, you know, I got to be careful. I'm taking Diane to dinner. Just give me a Diet Coke and put a splash of something in it. Frapp doesn't know how to do splash. He knows how to do a splash of Diet Coke in a glass of something else. Now, I wish I could tell you I was so naive I didn't know that this was a heavy pour, but I didn't realize it till about 2 hours later when I stood up. And I said, this is going to be a problem, because we had to walk home. Now, granted, it was only 4 blocks, but I said to Diane, I said, baby, you're going to have to lead the way, because I'm baked. Now, I know there are some of you here who are like, shame on you. Exactly. I'll own it. My mistake. But we walk down Red River and we get to Red River and 5th Street, right behind the Hilton Hotel. And I am leaning on the light post and my wife. And the Austin Duck Boat Tour comes down 5th Street. And in the Austin Duck Boat Tour, there's a host who's on a PA. And he's saying, here on your left, here on your right is the downtown Austin Fire Station. It's a historic building. It was the site of the original Austin Fire Department. And here is the Hilton Hotel. And ladies and gentlemen, here at the corner of Red River and 5th Street is the pastor of Riverbend Church, Dr. David Haney. Hey, everybody. And I'm sure, now, someday I'm going to meet that guy, because he has to know who I am, or somebody who was on that duck boat tour, and they will say, as we crossed 5th Street in front of the duck boat, and I was leaning on my wife, they probably said, oh, they're so in love. Oh, look at that. What a perfect marriage, where my wife is taking me down Red River Street saying, never again. Sometimes we are humiliated. Sometimes we are humbled. But at every opportunity, we should seek to be humble. It is the identity that we are called to be. Because as we pursue humility, we find contentment. When Andy Warhol said in the early 1960s, in the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes, I don't think he could even foresee the influence that we have just remotely over perhaps hundreds, if not thousands of people. And in some sense, not only was he right that each of us has the ability to achieve fame, the reality is each of us is famous to someone. As a parent, you are famous to your children. As a spouse, you are famous to your spouse. As a neighbor, you are famous to your neighbors. As a teacher, you are famous to your students. As a doctor, you are famous to your patients. As a boss, you are famous to your employees. And it is a sacred responsibility to be people who handle that fame well. Because fame is a dangerous thing.